Hello, this is James Arthur Ray,
And Bersabeh,
and this is
Awaken Nation.
Awaken Nation.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Zales, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things. Welcome to Awakened Nation.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I have two extraordinary guests on the show today. James Arthur Ray and his wife, Bersabeh Ray. This is going to be an extraordinary interview because you've seen him on The Secret. You've seen him on Larry King, Oprah Winfrey. But we're going to talk about redemption, the fall from grace, leadership, and getting focused on yourself when you've been knocked on your ass. Hate to put it that way. So James, Bersabeh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Brad.
Thank you for having
Great to
us.
be here.
Good. James, I want to kick things off because you said something extraordinary in your new book, The Business of Redemption, and you just said it. I am responsible. I am responsible for the deaths of 3 people. This reality is the complete antithesis of everything I have lived my life for or would have wished for those I'm blessed to work with. It hurts, and it hurts deeply every single day. On October 8th, 2009, I led a spiritual warrior retreat in Sedona, Arizona, nestled among the famous red rocks and steeped in spiritual tradition. Sedona is a natural draw for truth seekers and others looking to push past their boundaries, those things that are holding them back. This retreat would give participants the opportunity to push the limits of their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual boundaries through a week-long experience consisting of numerous introspective exercises and contemplations of unhealed trauma and unresolved emotional issues. It was tough, emotional, and yes, very rewarding. The week culminated in a multiple round sweat lodge event, the opportunity to reconnect with their inner mental toughness and emotional strength. At my urging, 3 people, James Shore, Liz Newman, and Kirby Brown, pushed themselves too far, ending their lives and forever changing mine. It was my event, my team, my sweat lodge, my choice to facilitate a dangerous exercise. As the leader, I alone am responsible. I didn't realize that something was horribly wrong during the sweat lodge exercise. No one did. God, how I wish I had. It wasn't apparent to me until after the exercise was over. Had I known that something was going wrong, I would have stopped immediately. I would have pulled up the sides of the tent and opened the door flap. James, how hard was it to write that?
It was very hard, Brad. That book was very cathartic. It took me 6 years to write it. I can't even begin to count how many times I wrote it and rewrote it and edited and re-edited. But it was an incredibly cathartic experience. And one of the things that I've come to realize, and I think this is so valuable for all of your viewers, listeners today, and for us in the world, is that until you're willing and able to take absolute responsibility for every single thing in your life, you don't have the empowerment or the capability to make it better or to change it. And unfortunately, there's so many people in today's world who are playing poor me or playing blame. And that keeps you in victim mode. And so anyway, long answer to your question, but it was difficult to digest, and yet it was very empowering ultimately.
Yes, I saw the documentary that you were in, and Enlighten Us, by the way, is what it's entitled. As I'm watching, I've been a big fan of yours for years. I'm what's the best way to put it? I could see the pain in your eyes. I could see that you had been crushed, broken, if I can use that word. And seeing your brother, and you gave a really great tribute to him in the book, seeing your brother take you in and you just getting in the zone. I recommend anybody watch that documentary, make your own assessment from this, but your brother was a big help. John was a big help during that time period. Am I right?
Yes, my brother's phenomenal. Love him dearly, and he really stepped into a big leadership role that I filled prior to going away, to going through the whole tsunami and going to prison and all that. I was kind of the caretaker and the leader of the family, and he stepped up immensely and took over my business while I was away, and taking care of all those things. And so, yes, I owe a debt of gratitude to him eternally for those things. And he's quite a phenomenal young man.
Well, God bless him. I could see that in the movie. You spent 2 years in prison. Am I correct on that one?
That's correct. The state wanted 30. So, very grateful to have spent 2. If the state would have gotten what they wanted, Brad, I wouldn't be here with you in Bersabeh today. I'd still be there. And so
Right.
I'm incredibly grateful. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fun. And yet, in retrospect, I'm incredibly grateful for the fact that the state charged me with manslaughter, which totally blew my mind. I mean, anyone who had that thinking faculty knew it was an accident. It was a horrendous accident. It broke my heart. And yet it was an accident nonetheless. And they came after me for manslaughter and wanted 30 years. Well, the jury, thank God, couldn't find one shred of evidence that there was any intentional harm, which there wasn't. Mm-hmm. But if you know anything about the legal system, it's not utilized for justice. That's unfortunate. Right. And we're seeing exhibits of that a lot in today's world. It's weaponized and it's used for political power and greed, quite frankly. Yeah. And so they bumped it up to manslaughter because there's a lesser inclusive, which gave them 2 opportunities to convict me. The lesser inclusive was negligence. And so the jury said, okay, well, there's no intentional harm here. We can't convict on manslaughter, but there was negligence. And so I own that. Negligence basically says things could have been done differently. I wish they had of. God knows things could have been done better. I agree with that, in retrospect. And so I got 2 years for that.
In state prison.
In state prison,
It
which
wasn't pampered prison.
Which isn't federal prison,
Yeah,
which is kind of like a resort that you can't leave for a couple of years. State prison is not a resort.
Yeah.
Right. I watched the documentary. I made my own assessment of it. You have done probably hundreds of these retreats, done these sweat lodges. I've participated in some of these things too. And you even had a doctor there. And there was no indication that anything had gone wrong at all until, you went outside. Then you start to realize, oh, something's going on. So, yeah, I think manslaughter was over the top. I really do.
It was. And quite frankly, again, my heart goes out to those who lost their lives and the families of those. And yet it was an accident. It was a horrible accident.
Yeah.
The doctor that you mentioned was seated right next to James Shore, who's one of the people who died, and Kirby Brown. They were seated right next to her. And she testified under oath that by her Hippocratic oath, if she had known anything was going wrong, she would have been sworn by her Hippocratic oath to do something, but she didn't know anything was wrong. And so I was clear on the opposite side of the lodge. And so just logically, I'm not sure if a medical doctor, MD, was sitting right next to the people who 2 of them died, didn't know anything was wrong. I'm not sure how logically I was supposed to, but that's That's a fact, and it's all documented evidence. It's all public record.
It's and I don't mean to be flippant to any of the people who died. I want everybody to know that but you say this is a great talking point, but the only way to overcome great adversity is to go through it. And you want to talk about why pain is the mother of all growth. And Bear, please join in as well.
Yeah. Bersabeh, you can talk about pain as the mother of all growth. Bersabeh's got an incredible story of pain and difficulty herself, which maybe you could share some of that.
Yeah, you're for those of you who don't know, you're a child of war, just as my girlfriend is. She's from Vietnam. And so let's talk about that, because here you are, a grown-up now, looking back on this. Let's talk about that.
That's a big assumption. She's a grown-up, but that depends on the day of the week, Brad. Yesterday she wasn't much of a grown-up, but that's another topic.
Anyway, I saw your podcast. I know. I've seen it.
God love her. She's the best.
I'm all right with that.
We have that kind of relationship.
I don't mind. Let's see. Yeah, I did. I grew up. I was born in war, and I grew up in war. We was in Iran when Iran was at war with Iraq. And before that was when supposedly the whole revolution happened in Iran, and the Islamic Republic took over. So it's fascinating because it prepped me for kind of what happened in 2020. When 2020 happened, I was just kind of like, well, it is what it is. Or we find out, our government is corrupt. Yeah, that's okay.
It prepped,
I'm used to that.
it prepped you for meeting me when I was $20 million in debt and homeless.
So yeah,
not a real attractive prospect at the time we met.
That is so sexy. Look at that.
Yeah. all the women are going, okay, next. So anyway,
that's the man for me. I mean, one of my first, I'll paint a picture. First childhood memories was, at night when we get dark, we hear sirens. Everybody has to turn the lights off, because the way that they would drop bombs on civilians on land was they would look for lights, and anywhere they see a light from above, they would drop bombs on it. So it was kind of a hit and miss, and you get lucky if they missed you. And one night the bomb dropped literally, I would say we went down to look at it afterwards. It was 3-4 houses down from our house. And that's horrifying.
Yeah.
When
you were 3 years old?
I was 5 years old at that time. Yeah, 5 or 6 at that time. And that was the norm. Every night you go to bed, you hear the bombs drop. I know what a bomb sounds like right before it hits the ground.
Yeah.
And you hear gunshots at night, saw people, get killed. And growing up in that atmosphere where the people are suppressed, you have no freedom there, especially the women. There's no freedom in that country, unfortunately. Right. And we had to escape from Iran. We couldn't just leave. We found people that we hired that smuggled us out in the middle of the night through the desert in the back of a pickup truck at the risk of being caught. And if we would get caught, we were either end up dead or in prison. And my father did actually go to prison twice, but the third time he decided to bring the family with him. So we all made it.
Good.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how was pain of the mother? That was
So the pain of all, yeah. Well, here, yeah. So here it is. I have that background as a child. Now, being here in the United States since I was 10, 11, I'd say 11 years old, it's taught me to appreciate what actual liberty is, what freedom is, to be able to thrive and go to school and not have and be able to sleep at night without worrying if a bomb is going to drop over your head. I mean, that was a big thing. And then being able to own your own business and to be able to make money, as long as whatever amount of work you put in, you will make the amount of whatever you want to make. You don't have that opportunity anywhere else in the world that I could think of. Not here in the United States. And I think that has taught me to be grateful for America. And it's pretty sad because a lot of youngsters that were born here or born here, they don't have that appreciation.
Yeah, it's so true. If you notice, my last name is Hungarian. My grandparents escaped from Budapest in Hungary to escape the communists coming in. They shot my great uncle in the head. He was chief of police. They shot him in his head in bed. And so my grandparents said, "We're out of here." And it's funny, they didn't know each other in Hungary, but they met here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, of all places, and had my dad. So I always grew up with that legacy of knowing that, these regimes, it can happen overnight. It can literally happen overnight. And you're right, our country, the United States of America, and I think this is the saddest part, this is coming here. And young people and a lot of people who are adults, they don't know any better. They think they're talking values and they're talking all these things. And what they don't realize is they're actually speaking the language of communism. And we're getting there, So are you surprised that, your childhood, you come to this land and now it's transforming?
Yeah, interestingly enough, and it does happen overnight. I remember my parents telling me when the regime it changed, it took over the supposed revolution in the name of democracy, which turned out not to be democracy.
Right.
My mom was telling me she's like, yeah, then the day the Ayatollah came in, that very same day, they said the women from this day forth all have to wear the head coverings. And everyone's going, wait, what? What happened here? And that's exactly how it happens. And they had the military go in the streets, and kind of what you see, not kind of, what you see happening in Israel with Hamas and what they're doing to the people. They were the same people that came to Iran and turned the whole thing around. There's women that were raped and the kids that were killed. I mean, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Well, and it's worldwide. It's not. Not, it really is. That's the real pandemic, if you will. And it's unfortunate. You mentioned the term communism, and it was Ronald Reagan who said, if fascism ever comes to the West, it'll come in the form of liberalism.
Yeah.
And pretty profound statement. And so, it's I think it's time to wake up. I think it's time to take our power back. It's time to realize who we are and what we have. And this, the younger generations don't, and I don't have that personal reference other than the total manipulation of the court systems that I was the brunt of. I mean, 32 counts of prosecutorial misconduct by the DA. 32 counts. And one count is grounds for a mistrial. There was no mistrial. They suppressed evidence in my favor. It was a Brady violation, and they got sanctioned for it. That's grounds for mistrial. No mistrial. And so again, it's time for us to stand strong and to remember who we are. And I the good news is, because all of that seems kind of dark to some, and it can be, but the good news is, here's my greatest metaphor. And I still want to talk about pain as the mother of all. Well, I'll fold this in.
Yeah.
The pain we're going through right now, economically and socially, it is waking us up. If you've ever had, Brad, a nightmare, and you sit up in bed straight up and you're sweating and you're breathing rapidly and you go, oh, thank God, it was just a nightmare. Well, let's please remember, it was the nightmare that woke you up. The nightmare is what awakens you. And so that's why I say pain is the mother of all growth. Pain is not a signal to suffer. It's a signal to grow. Pain is a signal that something is wrong in the body or in the system, in your relationship, regardless. And so if you pay attention to the signal, then you go, okay, let me wake up and let me start growing here. I need to improve here. I need to do something differently.
Wow. You said a mouthful, my friend. People don't realize most of our court system now is actually debt prison, debt system. They're trying to get money out of people.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing to swallow is our states and our municipalities are actually corporations. So they're not here for what we've been taught, which is freedom, which is, to live the life that you want, to have liberty, sovereignty, all those things. So pain is the big wake-up call. And I have a lot of friends over the last 5 years. They used to be staunchly against everything that came out of my mouth. They would call me a conspiracy theorist, all this stuff. Now they call me up and they're kind of like, well, how did you know this was going to happen? I said, because I read, I like what you said. Pain wakes people up. But on the other side of this pain, I want to know how you two met because you're really cute together. I feel maybe you can talk about this, James. Bear saved your life on many levels.
Yes.
I'm agreeing. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about that because I love having couples on the show who complement each other, both in business and life. And you guys are an exemplary example of that.
Well, thank you. That's a great compliment. We work hard at it. We really do. We built our relationship through war, literally, because not bombs and all those things. But when she met me, I was 10 years ago, Brad. I was homeless. I was alone. I didn't know her yet. I was physically broken. I had periodontal disease. I had just gotten out of prison. I lost 40 pounds I didn't need to lose. And homeless and alone and $20 million in debt. And so, when you're at that low, I went from the peak, at the peak, you mentioned Oprah and Larry King and New York Times bestseller and Inc. 500 company and all those types of things. And I was worth north of $20 million. So I've been to the peak, and yet I went to the pit. I went about as low as you could go. And we met at one of the first speaking engagements that I had in California, right? Yes, California. and she was in the audience with her brother, who I thought was her boyfriend at the time. Two dark-skinned Persian individuals, and I just made this assumption. And anyway, she came up to me. They were shooting the film Enlighten Us, and if you look really close in Enlighten Us, which you watch it, she's in it. Wow. She had long straight hair then because she used to straighten it. Now she goes natural, which I like so much better. But nonetheless, she had heard that a guy from The Secret was going to be there. And when I walked in, if you remember, I had long hair and I didn't look anything like I did in The Secret, as I don't now. I didn't have any gray hair in Enlighten Us either because I wasn't married yet. But but nonetheless, she wanted to take a picture with me, and I had this big film crew following me into the room, and she didn't recognize me because my hair was long and et cetera, but she recognized me by my smile, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I did.
And so she came up and asked if she could have a picture, and of course I said yes, and then she reached out to me on Facebook, and this was back when I had the time. I had nothing but time. I had the time to answer PMs on Facebook, which, by the way, as a viewer, don't PM me on Facebook because it's a full-time job. I can't do that. But nonetheless, she reached out and said, "Hey, I'd like to come work for you."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well," and I remembered her. I went to her profile and I remembered her. Oh, I remember her. And of course I did. And she said, I said, "What do you do?" She said, "Well, I have a degree in graphic design and animation, and I can help you with your social media, and your social media needs help." And I thought, yeah, it really does. And so I said, "Okay, well, let's meet for lunch." And we met for lunch,
Mm-hmm.
and in Carlsbad, California. At the time, I was living in LA, and my parents were in Carlsbad, and I'd go down to see them and take care of them. And we met in Carlsbad. We had lunch, and I liked her energy. She was upbeat and she was excited, and she showed me her portfolio, and she was incredibly talented. And I said, "Hey, I'd love to have you work with me. And here's the reality: I can't pay you. I'm $20 million in debt." I don't think I
Yeah.
told you that then.
Not then.
No, it's a little closer to the vest, but I didn't have the money to pay her, and she said, "That's okay." And I kind of flinched, and she said, "I have a full-time job. I'll just work for you on the edges." And so here's a big tribute
Mm-hmm.
to her. She started working for me for 3 years. She worked for me, and she'd get up at 4 a.m. and work till 6:30 for
Mm-hmm.
me, no pay. And then she'd get ready and go to work and work a full 8-hour day at her day job,
Yeah.
get home about 6:30, and grab a quick bite to eat, and then work till midnight for me. And she did that with no pay for 3 years. And that says a lot about her and who she is and who her character is. And God bless her. And I was so blessed because she's very talented. And so we were just friends and work associates for the first 3 years. We weren't a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first time in my history that I've ever started a relationship as friends.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, it's been invaluable, because we're still best friends. We literally, I'm doing all the talking here, so
That's okay.
you can
You
pitch
always
it.
do.
But we literally spend 24/7 together. We literally do. And it's really interesting, Brad, because during COVID 2020, everyone was locked down, and we worked with a lot of couples who realized they didn't really like each other. They couldn't leave the house, and they're going nuts. I don't
Right.
like this person. I can't get out of here.
Yeah.
But then we with much trepidation, and I'll transition to you. Decided we felt attraction, and we decided to become a couple, and that was a big decision.
It was a
Uh,
big decision. Go ahead, Brett.
No, I was going to say hubba hubba, right? After 3 years. That's funny. So when did you know you had feelings for him? Because I remember the exact day when my girlfriend said to me, "Oh, this is horrible. I have feelings for you." When was that?
Oh no! When was the day? The exact day?
I remember.
Oh, it was it the corner, the
Mhm.
third? Yeah, yeah. It was early on, wasn't it?
I
Probably, I would say year or two in.
Bersabeh is a strong, independent woman. And
Really? I
yeah,
didn't. I can't see that.
yeah, yeah. And growing up and dealing with what she had to deal with built backbone in her. And so we were sitting at a place in what's the
Third.
little town though? What's it called?
Oh, San Diego. I can't
Yes,
remember.
it's at outskirts of San Diego. And we were sitting at the corner at a bar that we used to like to go to and talk business. And we sit at the bar, and we'd get hors d'oeuvres,
Yeah.
and we would talk business. And she said to me, and this is just the beginning. She said to me, you know, "How would you feel about if I quit working for you and just became your girlfriend?" And I said, "What?"
What did you say?
I said, "Well, no." And all of a sudden, the businessman in me is like, "This is the best team member I've ever had in my entire life." and I don't have a great history of relationships. I was a commitment phobe for ages and a sworn bachelor, and
Mhm.
and I'm going to ruin my best friendship because it's not going to last. It's going to crash and burn, and I'll lose my best team member and I'll lose my best friend. No, no, and that's basically. I didn't say all that to her. That went on in my head in about a nanosecond, and I said to her, no, I don't think that's a good idea. You mean you'd quit working? She goes, yeah. And I said, no, I don't know about that. So
Yeah.
anyway, but it did resonate with me because oh, she has these feelings too. And there is an age difference here, by the way. So
Yeah,
I was, I was,
me too.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
I was a little hesitant because I thought, I said to her at one point, aren't I too old for you? We're 24 years apart, and she's 42, and I just turned 66 last week. But nonetheless, she said no. She goes, I've always liked older men. I thought, okay, check. It's looking better all the time. But it built up over time, and then I'll fast forward, um, because and I want to, you can talk about how we built our relationship through war, because the
Yeah.
first 3 years were very financially challenging, and Bersabeh was working out of the goodness of her heart, and I was living hand to mouth, and then Bersabeh went into some serious transformative work on herself,
Mm.
and she can talk about that. But I
Yeah.
have to fast forward, Brad, to this. She proposed to me too.
Man,
Okay.
I can't give you
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I
Oh.
mean,
forever and a day.
which didn't
Oh.
surprise me, given how she
He's surprised.
It's
opened
like it's like I
opened.
choose you. I get on knee here. Marry me.
Well, I'd already bought the ring, and
I kind of ruined it.
she ruined it because I'm a romantic, and I had rented a penthouse suite downtown.
She ain't got time for that, James. She doesn't have time for that. She's got
Yeah, and I was waiting for this
That's
special
exactly what I
day, and I
said.
was going to get on my knee and do it all romantically. And we were sitting at another, maybe Hanks. You're in Vegas. We were
yeah.
sitting at Hanks, and we used to
Yeah.
go to Hanks and eat hors d'oeuvres and have our meal there at the counter.
Thanks.
And she goes, I said to her,
Well,
you
because
know,
he keeps throwing hints.
I was throwing some
So,
hints.
what was the hint?
I
It was
said,
getting on my nerves.
I think of spending the rest of my life. I see us
Right,
together for the
that.
rest of our lives. And she goes, are you proposing to me? And I said, no. Why would I propose at the counter at Hanks? If I was going to propose, I'd do it right. And she goes, are we going to get married or not? And I said, are you proposing to me? She goes, yes, I am. What's the answer? So,
Wow. This is
Yeah.
hilarious. So you took the bull by the horns there.
yes, yes.
Fair.
Talk about the transformation you went through, though. If
Oh,
Brad, you're interested,
Are we
because
ready?
Oh, I'm always interested in transformational work. I always have guests on the show that are either doing the heavy lifting, the heavy work. I want to have Robert Smith on, who invented faster EFT, eutaptics, things like that. So everybody who listens to my show, they're into self-help and growth. So please share away.
Okay, so given you guys know a little bit of my history. When I came to the States, having parents both worked from morning till evening to be able to just support the kids, and we had to kind of take care of ourselves. We raised ourselves because parents are at work all the time. Anyway, needless to say, got in a lot of trouble. Hung out with a lot of people I should have been hanging out with, gang behaviors and so forth, and nickname used to be Baggy. I'll leave it at that.
when Chris Cross was popular, if you remember, she wore
Yeah.
clothes.
I did not.
Yes,
It
you
was
did.
once. If you would have seen me as in my teens, I looked like a little thug. So, anywho, I used to smoke. So I got in all kinds of things: drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, and cigarettes stuck for 24 years. I was a smoker for 24 years. And when I first got together with James, he had no idea I smoked.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't something that I was proud of, and I didn't want him to know Anyway, but then when you do these kind of things, you reach a point in your life where it's kind of like a crossroad where from this moment on, if I continue to do this, I will no longer have a chance of a completely different life. I will keep going down the same path of destruction and I will get destroyed and I won't be able to come back. And we all have those moments. I had mine 7 years ago now, and I took it and I got his help and I went and told him, I'm like, okay, so there's something I need to I need your help with something.
Yeah, we've been dating for quite a while, and I didn't know she smoked, which means she's really sneaky, and I'm still worried about that. Um, I'm not sure what else she's hiding, but maybe one day it will appear.
No, but I did. I went and asked him. I said, I need your help with something because I was serious about it. I wanted to, and I think any addict can relate to this because it wasn't just cigarettes. It was any substance I would use. You have an addictive personality. That's just what you do, and you can't be okay with nothing. You
Right.
always need something, right? And I really wanted to experience a life where I could just sit in the living room with absolutely nothing and feel perfectly okay. And not ever have in the back of my mind, oh, just one cigarette or just one joint or just one drink or one whatever. So we did. I got his help and we've been doing the emotional cleanup. And because what happens is we have all these unresolved emotional issues.
Yeah.
And how we keep stuffing them is by smoking, drinking, or whatever. Whenever it comes up, you do it, you push it down. No, I don't want to deal with it right now. So I stop and I let it all come out. And that he's not going anywhere.
She's
The
pretty
hell
confident I'm
he's
not
been,
going anywhere because I've
Sitting
been
right there.
her.
yeah, the hell he's been through is, yeah, I know that he's not going anywhere,
Well,
but we
you can
did.
imagine, Brad, and as a viewer, you heard a little bit about her story, and there's a lot more details to it, but you can imagine never dealing with those emotional issues, ever
Yeah.
just stuffing them, stuffing them, stuffing them, stuffing them. And there's a whole lot more that she didn't share. And so
Yeah.
now all the escape mechanisms are taken off and
And the demons come
and the
out.
kraken,
Yeah.
is cut loose.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Uh, Bersabeh, I take my hat off to you because most people don't do this. They don't deal with their shit. Pardon me for swearing, but they
Mm.
don't deal with it. They just don't. Either it's too scary or they're oblivious to how their behavior affects others. So you're a warrior as far as I'm concerned. It takes,
He is.
yeah. I mean, it's not easy.
No.
So let's continue. I want to hear the process. What was it like? I mean, you're going through this emotional stuff. James is sitting there because he ain't going anywhere. And I know there's shame behind it, but what was coming up? I mean, you suffer obviously from PTSD, but this is all coming out all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah, there was yeah, there's so many things because there's one thing, like when I was a kid, my father got ripped out of my arms when the military came and got him. My mom when she went to go visit him in prison was raped by the guards there, not just by one, but multiple. Um, so these things, and there's other things too that happened to me and one of my older siblings growing up. So, wow, got a little emotional there.
It's okay.
So
Yeah.
you know what happens is that we have these horrific things happens to us, and then we toughen up because we put on this facade because we need to be able to survive. And what happens is as we get older, well, that mechanism of this tough survival mode is no longer working for us, but it's working against us and it's becoming destructive. So when you do that, then you also tell yourself, oh, these things don't matter. A lot of other people have had a lot worse. Get over it. Get over your stuff.
Yeah.
Grow up, type of thing. But the thing is, yes, it doesn't mean that you have to dwell on it or to place blame and say, oh, it's my parents' fault, or it was, this person's fault, that person. You take full responsibility, and then you realize that, yes, these things did affect you. That's why you have these behaviors now. So once you look at that, then because the smoking was an effect of another cause that was taking place, the drugs was an effect. You address the cause, and then you won't have those effects anymore. And it's very hard work. Like I will not minimize it. And anyone that we do this for a living, helping people be able to do this kind of cleanup. And even for them, like I think about what I went through, and I'm still doing cleanup work, and it's tough. It is super tough.
6 years now you've been, and me as
Or
well.
7, yeah.
And Bersabeh, by the way, is a very, very gifted, intuitive healer, and she does healing and integration, and that's part of the reason she's so brilliant is because of her past experience. So we grow the most in the crucible of challenge. We don't grow the most when we're sipping the fine wine and smelling the roses. We just don't. We grow the most in the crucible of challenge. That's what makes us and shows us who we are and strengthens us. And she's very, very talented at doing that. And we do continuous work with each other. She's my go-to when I think, hey, I've still got, even at this point in my journey, I'm not all that. I'm not there, and I don't think we probably ever get there. Where whatever there is, it's a continuous journey, and so she comes to me, and I work with her, and I go to her, and she works with me. But that's what we do with our clients too, and it's interesting because the majority of her clients are very different than mine. The majority of her clients that come to her have had some kind of similar, imagine this, some kind of similar background experiences as she's had. And isn't that just coincidental? Well, maybe not.
I think not.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Maybe not.
What do they call that in quantum physics? Entanglement.
Quantum entanglement.
Yeah. So you have a little quantum entanglement there.
Right.
I've discovered that, if you're a spiritual, intuitive, empathic person, you will attract, which I do. I'm always attracting broken people. It took me years to work. And I guess the best way to put this is raise my vibration above that. I'm not here to serve everybody and help everybody and be the savior, and let that go. That was hard to do, but we're like puzzle pieces, James. I read your book, Harmonic Wealth, by the way, years ago. Great book. And you were brutally honest in that book as well. But I truly believe our greatest lessons is in this crap we attract. Sometimes we learn from that. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. If you're open and you're willing, life is the greatest biofeedback mechanism that exists. The things that and this is what we know in psychology, is that the things that inflame us or hook us that are outside of us are things that we have not yet dealt with in ourselves. If it informs you, then you're probably emotionally equilibrated or integrated. If it inflames you, then you've got some work to do. So here's the thing that we know. The person that pisses you off the most is the person who exhibits the behaviors that you have not healed and embraced within yourself. And so that's a hard pill to swallow for most people. And yet, if you'll swallow it and deal with it, then you can heal it. I can give you a quick example.
Please, go ahead.
My father, God rest his soul, he was a Protestant minister, very dynamic, very overbearing, very strong. And I was just the opposite, insecure and introverted and skinny and scrawny. And so I was always in his shadow. And as I got older and I started growing up and I went into AT&T in sales and then AT&T School of Business as a business consultant and so on and so forth, I started to feel better. And so then I would go home for those latter years, and my father was a bigot. God bless him. He was really a bigot, and he wasn't a bad man. He was a good man, but he grew up in Iowa on a farm, and it was all white, and it was all the same people, and that's how he was raised. And him and his brother, that's the norm. And so I'd go home at Christmas for a while, and they would start using derogatory terms and slang and this, that, and the other about this, that, or the other person. And I got really just angry about it. And I was like being so judgmental. How can they be so shallow? How can they be this, 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 this? And then it dawned on me, and this was years ago. He's been gone for quite a while. But it dawned on me, hey, this isn't about them. It's about you. You're being as judgmental about them as they are being about others. You're calling them out and calling them names just like they're doing. And so I thought, wow, that's sobering. And so I got to work on me, and I stayed away for 2 years. I didn't go back and visit for 2 years because I knew I couldn't go and not get hooked.
Yeah.
I had to heal that and integrate that. Well, after 2 years, I thought, okay, maybe I'm ready. And I went back, and guess what? My dad and my uncle, his brother, were still bigots, and they were still doing the same thing. And yet I was emotionally flat. I really was. And by the way, there's no value in lying to yourself. You got to be honest. And
Yeah.
and so I just was the come from was, hey, you know what? I understand how they were raised, where they came from, and their lack of exposure. I don't agree with it. And this is key for your viewer. Understanding does not equal agreement.
Right.
I look at a lot of things that are going on in the world right now. I understand how people can do what they're doing, and I passionately disagree with it. But understanding is not agreement. And so the power of understanding is that you can vehemently even disagree with the behavior, but you don't disagree or minimize the person, because people are not their behaviors. People choose to behave, but that's not who they are. They choose behaviors based upon the resources they have available. And if they had different resources, like my dad, if he had been exposed to different things in his earlier years, he would probably be behaving differently. And so, long answer to your question, but life itself is the greatest biofeedback mechanism for those of us who are willing to grow and to use it as a biofeedback mechanism to say, here's where I have work to do.
I agree with you. Wow. You said a mouthful. And it definitely resonates with me, your story of your father. My dad could sometimes be that way as well. But I also realized the only exposure he had to people of other cultures or races was what he saw out his window on Main Street in a small town. And I lived in New York City, where, half my friends were Latino or Black or from all over the world, and it is. I love the fact that you said this, and I'm paraphrasing a great quote which forget who said it, but wisdom is being able to hold two thoughts in your head at the same time that are opposing, and not really believe in one or the other, but be neutral in that middle. And I totally ruined that quote, but that was powerful what you said. What do you recommend to anybody who is coming to this for the first time? This self-help, this I want to be better. I want to get on my knees and do the work like Bersabeh did. And you, James, I've watched, in the documentary that you were in, how your rise came up as you learned and grew and you applied these techniques. Where does somebody get started with this?
Well, I think the fundamental is self-awareness. to really be self-aware, to know who you are and why you do what you do. Now, that's easier said than done, because I can't tell you how many people in today's world, based on social media conditioning and all the collective mind that we're immersed in. I'll give you an example. I read research recently, and Bersabeh and I were laughing about this, where they ask different age groups, how much money does it take for you to be happy? Well, they ask baby boomers, which is me, and they said, well, they said $150,000 a year. Okay, then they asked Gen X. Gen X said about $150,000 a year. Then they asked millennials, how much money do you need to be happy? $550,000 a year.
Sounds right.
Yeah. And so, there's a lack of self-awareness, and wealth is something that money can't buy. And that's really contrary to most people's opinion. You said you read Harmonic Wealth. My objective in writing that book was to redefine for the world the concept of wealth, because 99% of the people will say money. What's wealth mean? Money. No, you trace the etymology of the word wealth back to its origins, it translates as well-being. And I can tell you for a fact, I've worked with over 1 million people from 147 countries around the world. There are people who have stacks of money and they don't have well-being. They don't enjoy it. They feel this void. What good is bundles of money if you don't enjoy it? It's not good.
Yeah.
And that's true self-awareness. And I believe, Brad, we're on the precipice in this tumultuous time that we're in these transitional times that we're in. We're on the precipice of people beginning to say, hey, wait a second. Maybe this secular world that we've built and that we're getting away from, we've left the sacred behind and we've gone into secular, and we've forgotten our morals and our principles and our fundamental values. And that builds self-awareness, because we've chased the mighty dollar. God has become money. Money has become God for most people. Work has become religion, and politics have become our philosophy. And it's unfortunate, because we've gotten away from the fundamentals that so many of the greats, if you look at the Socrates and the Platos and the Aristotles and all those, and you go, whoa, that's really old stuff, James. Yes, but if you study them, they talk about being a good person, fundamentally being a good person. And that takes self-awareness. It takes knowing your values. It takes knowing who you really are. And it's not an easy thing to do, to break the chains of socialized mind. It's really not.
It really is. Well, Harmonic Wealth, I loved it because you weren't sitting there going, oh, yeah, you can get rich, just believe it. You were going into every aspect. You had 5 pillars. And, well, basically, they were relationships, mental, physical, spiritual, and taking action. And I love the fact that you said, you can't have this area out of balance while this area is thriving. And you used your own personal life as an example, especially in the relationship area. So I love that book. I recommend everybody pick up a copy of your books. They're all great, especially your latest one, The Business of Redemption. You're brutally honest in that. And how does everybody get a hold of you, by the way?
Are we going to give them, his viewers, a gift?
Oh, we do. We have a gift. We're going to.
Now that you've mentioned Harmonic Wealth, I think, is that the one we're giving, or are we giving redemption?
We can give both if you guys like.
That would be great. Yeah.
We have one, Harmonic Wealth, the movie. So in today's world, readers are few and
far between.
Yeah. So
you noticed that, huh?
So we said, let's give them the movie. So you could go to harmonicwealthglobal.com/movie, and you could watch the Harmonic Wealth movie there free from us to you.
Thank you.
For redemption, you just can go to harmonicwealthglobal.com/redemption and get a free ebook copy of Business of
My latest
Redemption.
book, Business
Yeah.
of Redemption.
Excellent. Also, I want everybody to go watch Modern Alchemy, and I'll run a clip right now. I think it's a great show. You two bouncing off of each other is hilarious. Bersabeh, you're hilarious because you can tell your husband or wife because you just jump right in. You're like, no, I'm talking now, and it's hilarious. And for those of you who don't know, they have a principal each month, and you do it once a week. Is that correct? On Mondays? That's
correct.
Yes.
Here, I'll show a clip. Roll the tape.
Let's talk about today.
What are we talking?
Transmuting frustration into fulfillment.
Oh, that's hard.
Do you know, it's not that hard, actually, because, Gallup tells us that 72% of the people on the planet are frustrated, unhappy, and totally disengaged from their daily life and work.
I'm sure.
That's almost,
is that more now?
It's almost it. It's a good point. I haven't seen it since the 2020 debacle, but I would bet that it's probably even more so now.
Sure.
And so why is that? Because we are hardwired for fulfillment. We're hardwired to progress. Mm-hmm. Whether you're consciously aware of it or not, we want to progress. We want to feel like we're growing. We want to feel like we're contributing. We want to feel like we're learning and expanding. And so here's a premise. Progress equals
fulfillment.
It does.
Yes, it does.
I mean, when you progress, you feel fulfilled. I like to hyphenate that word.
Which is much better than just being happy.
Right?
Fulfilled it's solid.
Oh, here's a good point. Fulfillment can exist where happiness does not exist.
Yeah. So true. You could be unhappy, but yet you could be fulfilled.
Yeah. You speaking from experience?
Yes.
In your marriage? Hopefully not.
No.
Thank you, God.
I winked.
So did you wink?
I didn't wink.
Wow.
I had to tell because it's on video. I would have heard about it later.
Okay. Thanks so much.
I'm kidding.
I know. We have, if you haven't noticed, you'll get to know us. We have a very tight friendship and a very comical and playful.
We share a good sense of humor.
Yeah, playful relationship.
Yes.
But I digress. Let's get back on point here.
Okay.
Last week we talked.
I love that show simply because, it's a husband and wife being brutally honest with each other and about different topics. And I think your fan base is leaning in more on this because, James, I want to talk about this a little bit. I think a lot of what is going on today in America and around the world is this jealousy of success. I see it. I've had people tell me off for no reason. I took a company public. I've written books. I'm always trying to get better. That's what people don't understand from this. But I feel like we're in a day and age, and I believe you were on the brunt of people who have a chip on their shoulder against success and people who try to help people achieve success. I want to talk about that a little bit because I think that was the undercurrent as to what had happened to you with the going to prison, the court system, everything, trying to throw the book at you, damned how protocol is supposed to be in the courtroom. We're going to get James. And I feel that's what happened.
I think that's very insightful, and I appreciate your insight on that. Mm-hmm. And let me just say straight up, no holds barred, no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no way I'm a victim. I'm not a victim. I'll never be a victim. And I don't believe there are such things as victims, quite frankly. That's a whole nother topic. That being said, there are things that are not being used appropriately in today's world. And if you go back to what happened to me in 2009 and 10, 2009 was the accident. And 2010 it went on into that. That's when the media literally crucified me and went after me. But if you go back and think about what was happening, the real estate market was tanking. The stock market was in trouble. And I became the poster boy for every single person, every that hated personal development, every single issue that was incongruent with personal development. And let me be the first to say, there's a lot of hypocrisy in personal development. I've been behind the curtain with name the name. I know them all. And I will tell you this, not one of them who, just months earlier wanted to joint venture with me and wanted to share the stage with me and wanted to be seen with me because I was on the top. Not one of them, except for the late great Bob Proctor, God rest his soul, even sent me a text to say, how you doing? Hang in there. Not one of them. And so, and this is from an industry that says,
supposed to help you.
Oh, we're going to help you and we're going to support you. And so I agree. I think what I have constantly driven for, and to this day, and will continue for the rest of my days, because I don't plan on retiring. They're gonna have to roll me out, because I'm fired up about what we do, and I want to help people become independent thinkers, and that's what I've constantly driven for. Don't buy into what you've been told, because the reality is, and Brad, you said, people said to you, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, guess what? And I bought the story hook, line, and sinker for a long time. And yet then I started, after my debacle and the tsunami, I started to step back and go, wait a minute, maybe I need to dive in a little bit deeper and look a little bit deeper, because everything I've been told and taught is wrong. And you have to be an independent thinker to do that. There are still people, and I get it. It's tremendously frightening to have been raised in America like I was, and to be told that you have this right and this right and this right and this right and this liberty and that freedom, and to have someone or something say to you, no, that's not how it is. That's not how it works. It shatters your world model. It really does. And so I was telling people, think for yourself. Don't buy into, even way back before Donald Trump came up with fake news. This is way before that. I was saying, hey, don't buy into what the media is telling you. Think for yourself. And I don't think that's very popular. And it's not, it's even less popular today. Not only are many people persecuted, some of them are being prosecuted, for Christ's sake.
Well, I grew up in a small town where the farmers, they didn't buy into the narrative that the government would try to shove down your throat. And, I was around pig farmers and chicken farmers, corn, farmers, everybody. And my dad being Hungarian, there was no trust the government. There wasn't any of that in our household. It was think for yourself. This is what this bill they're passing really means. And it's ironic that they call it a bill, because you're gonna pay. Right. But I agree. Pain, and I noticed this in you, James. I think what happened is not only was your mind opened through what you went through, but so was your heart. Sometimes the things we go through, we have this wonderful meteoric rise to the top. But sometimes I believe, and it happened to me, you can be caught in a bubble of your own reality. I took a company public back in the 90s, and I thought I was hot stuff, Through life, knocking me down, a divorce, everything else, I awakened to a much deeper world. And I think that happened to you. Am I correct on that?
You're absolutely correct. And I have to give a lot of credit to Bersabeh for helping me with that, because she really taught me what love is all about. And I thought I knew, but I didn't, And I look back, you mentioned Enlighten Us. I look back, and I haven't looked at that for quite some time, a few years. But when I look at it in retrospect and I see certain clips, I look at myself and I go, wow, that was harsh. That was really hard. and my come from was good, but
Mm,
good intentions are not always good. They're not enough. It's not what you believe, it's not what your intentions are, it's what you do that defines you. And so yes, I it has softened me. It's given me great compassion. I went into prison quite arrogant. I was angry and arrogant, and I thought there's all of them, and then there's me, and that's pretty arrogant. But the more I was there, and I started interacting with them, I realized with these murderers and these
mm,
rapists and these drug addicts and these um, these twisted, crooked police officers and all these gang members that I was imprisoned with, I thought, hey, you know what? The same things that they value and they want, I want the same. We want the same things. It's just that our strategies for going after them are different. And if they had been raised like I was raised, maybe they'd choose different strategies. Who
Yeah.
knows? Um, but but I realized it wasn't them and me, it was we, and we were all swimming in this same soup, if you will, and consequently it taught me so much more about the
mhm.
human dilemma and brought so much more compassion in my life. And so I take that as a great compliment, Brad, for you to say it's opened my heart, because it really has, um, tremendously. And I don't want to do it again. God, listen to me,
Yeah.
please. I don't want to do it again, but I'm grateful. In
Yeah.
retrospect,
Yeah.
I'm truly grateful for that experience.
Good, good. Well, Bersabeh, I want to hear from you because you came into his life when he was probably at his lowest. And you may not realize this, James, but now you had street cred with her. Uh,
Yeah.
he's like, damn, he's a badass. But for all the women out there, you kind of helped him rebuild in many, many ways. Um, and I think it's because you saw bigger potential in the comeback for him. Is that correct?
Yes, that's for sure. And the other part, one of the other parts was that what I saw was totally unfair in
Oh
my
yeah.
view. Like I thought this is not cool. And I did see the potential in him and it was almost like I had to, like I had no choice. I
Yeah.
gotta help him do this no matter what it takes. I'm gonna do it. And yeah, and given also what he's done for me in the process of being with him for what, going on 10 years now?
11, I think.
11 years.
11 years.
Wow.
11 years. I'm glad that I stuck with it, because to be able to transform your life like I've done so, that's priceless. That's priceless. And the working for me is pretty easy. I enjoy working. I'm not afraid
Nice.
to work.
Nice. Well, you have that immigrant mindset like
Yeah,
my dad did. Yeah. My
yeah,
Yeah,
grandmother. Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you so much, you two, for being on Awakened Nation. It's been an honor to have both of you on the show.
Thank you,
It's
Brad.
been an honor to be here, Brad, and
Yeah,
you're doing great work, and I honor
Thank you.
you for that. Thanks for having us, and keep doing the great work.
Sure. Well, I'm not going to let you go yet. I have three questions in our lightning round that I do every show.
Oh,
James, I'm going to start off with you. Number one, do you have any regrets?
no,
Good.
no, I really don't. I think, everything has been a lesson for me. And
yeah.
I can only speak for me. Now there's going to be someone who goes, "Oh, that's pretty harsh because three people died in your sweat lodge."
Oh,
And you admitted you could have done things better or differently. I can only speak for me. I can't speak for their families. I can't speak for them. We can all only speak for ourselves. And so I I think that what life gives to us, we have to choose what to do with it. This is not much of a lightning round. Sorry, Brad. We have to choose what to do with it. I tried with just no, but and to the degree that we don't choose what to do with it, that is empowering for us, then we disempower ourselves. So for me, no, I have no regrets
Well,
whatsoever.
yeah, you shouldn't have any regrets because you didn't purposefully do that. That's
No.
Yeah,
the whole point.
Yeah.
it wasn't intentional,
Right.
and I get that, and
Yeah.
I feel the same way, James. I don't have regrets. I zigged when I should have zagged, maybe, or something, but the reality is this made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And you
That's how
learned
I
a
look.
lot and grew a lot, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Hell yeah.
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 Beelzebub, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, with this man, hanging out with him 24/7, doing all this work with him, what is it that you love about hanging out with him?
Oh, our conversations.
Mm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Hands down, our conversations.
Those are sacred for us, by the way, Brad.
Yeah.
We every single morning we have coffee time.
That's the only thing that I could come up with was
Well,
coffee
you
time.
should have told me.
Yeah, I know.
No, coffee
So,
time.
coffee time. What's it like with this guy? What's it like?
Coffee time in the morning is we talk about our dreams, then we get into philosophical life and everything is in all the deep conversations happens in the morning.
Yeah.
And at dinner, but
Well,
mostly
and dinner.
Yeah. So conversations.
Yeah.
James, I've started to learn this. I just turned 60, so baby boomer right here. And I started to realize something I never knew, and that is compatibility with the person you're with. I think a lot of men do this. We live in the shadow of our fathers sometimes. And I guess most of my relationships, it started out was, is she good looking? Is she sexy? Is she intelligent? All these things that were just outer stuff. But I see in you guys this compatibility that, would you say that that's been the biggest factor for both of you? And I want both of you to talk about this a little bit.
I think yes, it is a big factor. And by the way, just I want to go on record and say she also checks the boxes of sexy and attractive and
Not in the beginning.
She's definitely cute as a
No,
button.
Not in the beginning.
Curly hair.
she was emaciated when I first met her, but because of all the bad things toxins she was putting in her body.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think the most fundamental, and we do relationship work with couples,
Yeah.
and so many times we think that we need to have common interests. Oh, we like the same movies, we like the same food, we like the same music, and that's okay. But those common interests are not going to get you through the storm.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
What's most important and fundamental, and I think we would both agree, are common values. And you have to have common values that you hold in high regard,
Yeah.
that both of you are bonded around, because both of us have a common value for God, for
Being a good person.
for being a good person, for morality, all those things. And those are the things that are like the glue.
Yeah.
And that's been a big thing with us. And then the other thing, if I may, is friendship. It's not just about the physical attraction or the sex or the this or the that. It's about, do I really enjoy time just talking with this person?
I think those
Yeah.
are like the icing on the cake, the looks and the sex and all that. Because even if you were, because I was previously married, this is my second marriage, and that was, I could say, it was more for looks. And after a while, you really don't see the looks anymore. All you see
Yeah.
is when that person opens their mouth.
It's
And
true.
you're like, there it is.
Yeah. I've been waiting for it. There it is.
Yeah.
I love that about you two. It's an extraordinary relationship. James, I want to ask you a question, and then lastly, Bersabeh. What do you say, James, to your naysayers who don't feel you've been punished enough? And I see it all over the place, and frankly, it tires me out that people won't give you a break. What do you say to those people?
Get a life.
Yeah.
I mean, and that sounds harsh, but the reality is, what else do you want from me? It's been 13 years now. And here's the real issue, Brad. I don't ever expect the family members to love me. and that's okay. I really I understand. I don't agree with it. One of the family members who has been the most vicious is a psychologist, and it's really ironic to me because I'm pretty sure that person would tell their clients forgive and move on, but 13 years later that hasn't happened, and so the reality is we're all dealt rough hands, a bad card from time to time. And God forbid that you're involved in something that is unseen, unknown. You can't predict it. It's unpredictable. It's unfortunate. And so I just say, hey, I understand you. God bless you. I wish you peace, and I wish you to move on because you're still living in the past.
Thank you for that. Bersabeh, I wanted to ask you this in closing. You guys are doing extraordinary work. You're making a comeback together. You're cute as a button, both of you. Your interaction is great. But what do you want your legacy at the end of this life to be? Both you and James.
I would like to see him back where he was and beyond.
Yeah. That'll happen.
Yeah.
With you.
Yes.
New and
I
improved.
will make sure you. I will hold the space.
This is James Arthur Ray 3.0, which means
there you go.
A 1 and a 2, which is maybe for our next podcast. But
I would love to get to that point where his vision is to reach 1 billion people to help them awaken humanity. So I'm behind that 100%.
God bless you both. Ladies and gentlemen, James Arthur Ray and Bersabeh Ray, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on Awakened Nation today. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. God bless.
You bet. Hey, everybody, tune in next week, and bye for now.
Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success will be because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.